Hello, everyone. Buongiorno. I'm very happy to be here at the RIAS Open Source Week 2021. And I would like to share with you a bit of our journey at Daimler/Mercedes-Benz from a traditional car manufacturing company to a company which embraces FOSS, free and open source software, and has made a commitment to open up as much as we possibly can. And so hopefully our story can help you as well if you're maybe in a similar position and you try to spread the good word of FOSS at your company. So to give you some quick background about us, you've probably heard of Mercedes-Benz. We manufacture basically vehicles, passenger cars, vans, and so forth. And as a company, we've been around for quite a long time. Traditionally, at our core, we are a mechanical engineering company. So we bend steel sheets in certain ways, and in the end, the car comes out. So just a few months ago, I got myself a new one of these cars, and I really like it. It's quite nice. But it has one very interesting accessory that caught my attention, and I brought it here with me. So it's this thing here. You can find it in the instruction manual in the glove compartment. And when you look inside, it's a small CD. But the car doesn't even have a CD player anymore, which is not a problem because it's not an audio CD anyway. It's a data CD. But my company laptop also doesn't have a CD drive anymore. So how do I know what's on it? Well, fortunately, it's labeled. And so it says license information, free and open source software, and Mercedes-Benz uses free and open source software with several of its products. So this CD contains all the license information, all the open source license information pertaining to your particular vehicle. And if you, like me, don't have a CD drive anymore, you can go to the website. The URL is right here. Punch in your vehicle identification number, and you get all the information there as well. Clearly, the CD as such is a thing of the past. And we are right now working on doing away with it, which isn't actually as easy as it sounds because there are legal obligations you have to observe. The license information has to be part of the product. It has to be physically available in the car as well. So it's not sufficient to only say in the manual, hey, go to that website. It's actually kind of funny to have that relic of the past CD in your brand new high-tech Mercedes, right? Why am I telling you this? Well, I wanted to show you that even though we embrace FOSS, there are some tricky aspects to it as well. Not that long ago, just a few years back, we didn't really use much FOSS or any at all in our software development. We were proud to develop our own code. If it's not invented here, we probably shouldn't rely on it. Yeah. Now, that just isn't possible anymore. Even if you had all the budget in the world, which you usually don't, you still wouldn't have all the time in the world, let alone the developer manpower. And above all, of course, it just doesn't make sense to write code for which there already is a perfectly nice available solution out there. All right? I'm probably preaching to the choir since you're here at this open source conference, but in a big corporation, this requires a change of mindset and maybe even more importantly, change of culture above all. And that can be very tricky and time consuming. And so this change of mindset and how it can be achieved is sort of the point of this talk. So I'll get back to this. Now, when you use FOSS, free and open source software in your products, you need to train your employees to have the necessary awareness and understanding of the obligations that this brings with it, mainly license obligations. You can't just use FOSS. You have to understand licenses as well. especially if the things that you produce, in our case, vehicles or software centered around mobility, contain software. And that is, of course, where that CD originates. Our current S-Class model, for example, has about 100 different FOSS licenses, and our Mercedes Me app uses over 130 FOSS components, in the Android version, about 50 for iOS. So that means our people, our software developers, have to understand licenses as well. And so we developed an internal training to that end, which everyone in IT has to do. Okay, so far, so good. Now, but just use FOSS in your software development is not enough. You don't want to be a freeloader only, at least I don't. You want to say thank you to the community. Thank you for letting me use your code all these years. And if you only use FOSS, you're also not utilizing so much of the potential that FOSS has. You know, you can contribute back, you can make it better here and there for everyone. You can help steer projects in the right direction, in a direction that you and everybody else benefits from. In FOSS, 1 + 1 a lot of times does actually equal 3, right? And that is what embracing FOSS means for us. Use, but also contribute, and also create our own open source projects and provide them to the community. We're still at the very beginning in this latter aspect, I have to admit, but we're working on it. So in other words, it means to become an active member of the open source community and a good citizen there in the open source community. And this is what we're trying to achieve at Mercedes-Benz. Let me illustrate how. So, oh, I totally forgot to advance the slides. I'm sorry. So here's this one. Oops. And the next one is, so here now, a complete change in mindset from only proprietary software towards open source requires a lot of communication in your company. And in general, when implementing such a big cultural change, you're faced with these 3 challenges. First of all, how do we tell everyone? Yeah, oops, sorry. News in a big company, or if you take the whole Daimler or Mercedes group, a big set of companies even, news sometimes travels slowly before they have reached everyone. I guess some of you probably know this from your own experience. Second, FOSS is part of our global IT strategy in Daimler. How can we get people to actually implement it? Make it part of their day-to-day work? And third, for me, actually the most important one, how do we get the open source way into the mindset of people? How do we motivate people intrinsically to do open source? So in short, we want to deeply ingrain FOSS into our company's DNA, if you will. And so it had become clear to us that, you know, just communication alone probably doesn't cut it. So we needed to something a bit more radical to achieve this. And so with the Agile Manifesto that you probably all know in mind as an inspiration, we created the Mercedes-Benz FOSS Manifesto. It's a set of guidelines and core values which sends our employees on their open source mission, knowing fully well that they are backed up by the company and supported by the company. And it is now a key pillar in all our FOSS endeavors. All right, so now let's take a look at it. So the Mercedes-Benz FOSS Manifesto has 3 parts to it. This one, the first one here, is the preamble. The preamble is in order to sort of set the stage, give the manifesto a solemn note, and to show we mean business. The preamble also states our overall goals, if you read over this, that hereby we aim to improve the quality of our software, that we want to be active members of the open source community, you know, not only use it, but contribute and create as well, and that we want to work on making this happen. Right? And one important thing is also the preamble shows, look, this is something that comes from the people at the base and is fully backed up by senior management. And in our case, this actually goes to the very top, including our CEO, Ola Kelenius, who has endorsed it. I'm very, very happy about this. But I mean, you actually need the senior management backing, right? Because as you will see, we are making assumptions about how people can use their working time, and you can't do that without the senior management, top management attention, right? So, if you have read the Lisbon Treaty on the European Union, that it looks just a tiny bit similar to that, because I've used that as an inspiration. I mean, who hasn't read the Lisbon Treaty on the European Union, right? Okay, let us move on to the next page. The next two parts are the company's principles and the employees' principles. Here are the company's principles. So, a lot of times our employees are still a bit uncertain if they are allowed to have their own open source projects, if they're allowed to contribute to open source projects. Because as I mentioned, that hasn't actually always been the case in the past. So the intention of the company principles here is not only to show that the employees that indeed they are allowed to contribute to do so, but it actually sends them on that mission to do exactly that. So the first principle here encourages employees to use, contribute to, and create projects both in open and inner source endeavors. Now, a lot of times employees, software engineers will tell you, but I have to work productively in these projects. I don't have the time to do open or inner source on the side. So it is the purpose of principle number 2 to let the employees know that it is indeed absolutely okay for them to take the time to do so and work on such projects as well. Yeah, because this is actually something that creates value for everyone and for us too. So it's not at all wasted time or extra effort without benefits, which is a position that is sometimes held by people who are not too familiar with open source in the first place. A German physicist called Georg Christoph Lichtenberg from the 1700s, he once said, you should never be too busy so you don't have the time to think, right? And so this here basically applies. You should never be too busy so you don't have the time to do open source as well, right? Okay, principle number 3, lets employees know that they are supposed to learn and grow with FOSS. Take the time to do so and, for example, attend conferences and give a talk perhaps, right? I don't need to mention that learning, advancing, or an exchange with experts is a good idea for personal growth. I think that's pretty obvious. Principle number 4 strives to promote visibility, for example, through active memberships and participation in open source foundations. So we are, for example, a founding member of the Eclipse Foundation Europe, which is a really cool thing. I think we're member of the Linux Foundation, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, and a couple more through our IT subsidiary and my home base actually, Daimler TSS. So moving on, the next slide here are the principles from an employee's point of view. They basically ask of an employee to become more active in the FOSS world and to think FOSS first. So principle number 1 says, please look for alternatives in open and inner source first before you write code for which there already is a nice solution out there. The old, let's not reinvent the wheel over and over again, right? We emphasize inner source as well because we think this is really important too. But the order goes open source first, then inner source, and only then write custom code of your own. Principle number 2 says, please be active in inner source. And principle number 3, please be active in open source. And lastly, number 4 is sort of a mini code of conduct. Please be nice. Act responsibly. Be a good citizen. Remember that how you behave out there will reflect back on the company as a whole. And obviously, it's in the best interest of everyone to uphold a good image here. So, To sum it up, we hope that our Mercedes-Benz FOSS Manifesto and its principles will help to facilitate the cultural change in our company towards an open and inner source company. I hope I have sparked your interest. Where can you find the FOSS Manifesto? Head to this website, open source Mercedes-Benz.com. This is our FOSS landing page. It is still brand new. We have just taken it live a couple of weeks ago. You can find some blog entries, not very many yet. There will be more soon. And you can find some of our open source projects. Also not very many yet, as I mentioned, because we don't have that many yet. Hopefully more soon. We're just starting with that. Oh, and you can find the FOSS Manifesto on that page. And you can download it if you like, in two versions actually. One is the nice Mercedes-Benz corporate layout, and the other one is a pirate version. Just oh, and very soon we will have a GitHub repository with the Mercedes-Benz FOSS Manifesto under the Creative Commons 0 license. So that means you can, if you like it, you can use it as a base. You can download it and you can edit it and alter it in any way you desire, but you can sort of use it as a starting point and then do with it whatever you want, right? Check back in a couple of weeks. Hopefully we'll have it set up then. Okay, yeah, so that's it. Take a look at our FOSS Manifesto. I hope you like it. I hope you find it useful, and let us know what you think. Are we missing some principles? Do we have quite enough? The wrong ones, the right ones? Tell us what's on your mind. Shoot me an email. The contact info is also on that webpage. All right. This talk is pre-recorded, obviously, as you know, but I should be available in the chat right now for some live questions and answers. So, mille grazie. Thank you very much for taking your time and listening.